almost like the more we're becoming technological and advanced, the worse we're getting, and it's being championed. We live in a world today where climate change is headed by a teenage girl from Sweden, I think. We live in a world today where men are being led by a bald American guy who lives in some country, Romania, I think. We live in a world where the red pill movement is a way to go. We live in a world where it's woke versus right. We live in a world where we, and by we I mean people like me who live in third world countries, are at the mercy of these powers who are playing this game of, hey, who can shoot first?
I will be right here.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fabish Mark podcast. This feels very different. Okay, I hope you can see me. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fabish Mark podcast. It's a new episode that we are recording today, and it feels very high. And it's a bit different today. It's a little bit different because of a few things. I think it's very sad what's going on in the world, and I am no political commentator of any kind. I don't know anything to do with politics. I don't know anything to do with world politics. I don't know anything to do with things to do with humanitarian support and all that stuff. But one thing I know is that there's two things. There's love and there's hatred. And it seems like at the moment, hatred is prevailing at a very alarming rate. And as somebody who would not wish, and I want to state this, I would not wish to be on one side or the other. I don't know the history. In fact, if anyone knows the history of world politics, please, I'm inviting you to come on to my podcast so that we can sit down and talk, because I mean, it's scary. It's scary to think that in 2023 we have what we have. It's scary to think that in 2023 Russia could invade Ukraine and nothing can happen. It's very scary to believe that in 2023 Israel and Palestine are still fighting. Well, I don't know if they've always been fighting. It's crazy to think that in 2023 there's still a country in the world that no one knows what's going on in. It's crazy. It's crazy that at the golden age of technological advancement is inversely proportional to morality. It's almost like the more we're becoming technological and advanced, the worse we're getting, and it's being championed. We live in a world today where climate change is headed by a teenage girl from Sweden, I think. We live in a world today where men are being led by a bald American guy who lives in some country, Romania, I think. We live in a world where the red pill movement is a way to go. We live in a world where it's woke versus right. We live in a world where we, and by we I mean people like me who live in third world countries, are at the mercy of these powers who are playing this game of, hey, who can shoot first? That's the world we live in. And yet, I guess this is like a human thing, we deeply believe that we are safe. And I also do. Like you almost think like, well, what's the prospect of a World War III? And you think, well, I don't think it's anywhere close. I don't think it's ever going to happen anyway. No, there's no way. Like you just believe in your mind that there's no way it can happen in this world. And yet, we see these things happen. Like, we just forgot about the Ukraine war. We forgot about, like there's cobalt mining in Congo where people are going through the worst of like events, and people are suffering. And yet, no one speaks about it. And if somebody was to do a campaign about a beer that they didn't like, the world will go crazy. That's the priority, and I massively blame social media. I think the way we can solve some of these issues is if we could just take one day off social media and just sleep. And then maybe the next day we would wake up and think logically. Because a lot of these things are dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, you know? And so now you have all these people, my generation, who are spending time sitting in their basement, keyboard warriors, you know, constantly typing away at things they don't even understand. And the saddest part is, and I figured this out the other day, this is crazy. This is the craziest thing I've ever learned. I've been on the internet for, a few years. And, I never actually believed that I would ever stumble upon something like this. This is something that just blew my mind. You ready? There's people who are selling the pictures of their feet online for money. Now, I know that sounds crazy because you're gonna be like, yeah, we've had that before. I did not know that actually existed, and it's something I never wish to do. Let me just point out. But it's just crazy to think that somebody full-time job is to take pictures of their foot and then put it online. Now, the crazy thing is, I don't even want to imagine who looks at these things, but I just have one question for those people who like take pictures of their feet. So what about like normal days, right? Like okay, if you're what do I call you? I know like an Instagram person is an influencer. What do I call a feet person? A footer? I don't know. Anyway, so if you're somebody who takes pictures of feet, what happens when you're taking like a normal picture with your family, like on a vacation or something? Do you blur your foot? Cause I'm really curious, like how important those feet to be put on a website, and who thinks about making a website? Like who sits down and thinks, oh wow, the world, I can see a niche, I can see a market where feet pictures would be sold, and they go, okay, they ring up their developer, the website developer, and they're like, I guess the website developer is called like Dwight, and they're like, hey Dwight, do you think this could work? And they're like, yeah, we could give it a try, and we could go, we could do some, cause it's actually a legit like business, and it's actually like, I don't know how much revenue they get, but hold on, I can just look that up. It's quite easy. It's fascinating. Hold on. All right. Okay. Ooh. Okay. It says some people are earning over $1,000 per month for selling feet. That's kind of. I mean, these are the same people who are typing away on Wild Matters. These are the same people who are voting. I mean, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But to circle back, okay. I was talking about like creating the website. Dwight calls, then I don't know how do you even advertise that, So okay, they create this website. How do they get the first person? How do they get the first person to know that this website exists? Do they like just broadly advertise? I'm very curious how such things like come about. Like maybe like they know these like very weird people who like gather together and they go and like advertise to them, because I'm very curious. But anyway, yeah, back to the state of the world. We live in a world where that exists, and those people make decisions like us, and those people have a say, and those people have an opinion. Now, I don't have a problem with people who post their foot pics. I don't have a problem. The problem I have is we as human beings, like just sitting there and thinking that we are safe. And when it's all said and done, we have regions in the world, and I can only speak for things I know. I can only speak for people I know. And my people, who are people in a third world country, I think we can all agree that we do not want any part to do with anything. If it were by my choice, I would say, well, let's just let them fight against each other. Let's put a dome and just protect ourselves. I think, to be honest, people in Kenya, people in Africa are just wanting to go by. They don't care about all those things, because if you start coming to Kenya and you talk about like, oh, climate change, they're just gonna look at you and say like, well, I have to go and work and put food on the table, I don't have time for that. Plus, we're not really like doing much. It's those big countries that are like changing a lot. Like, it's just like there's a lot of things in the air, and like you have to look through it. And I think my people, it's just sad because we realize that we cannot protect ourselves. We can't. And it's sad to look around and see all these big powers messing with this with each other and then telling other countries to stay mind their own business? We can't, because what we don't realize is we all live in the same rock and it's rotating, and we don't have a choice to go to Mars. I'm pretty sure if it was possible and you asked people from Africa that do you want to leave this continent, they would say yes, because we didn't sign up for this fight. We didn't sign up for this. We don't have the ability to protect ourselves. We are relying on people who, within themselves, are so divided. And you're almost like praying, like, oh my gosh, like imagine if like the way we get rain, right? We get rain, and there's a supplier for rain up there, and we highly depend on them for rain, right? And we realize that those people are not as organized as we think, and among them, the gods of rain are actually fighting against each other. And we realize that this rain, which is something so important, might one day just stop coming because they're having a disagreement amongst themselves, and we cannot do anything about it. We are relying on them. Now, if we try and get our own rain, they will stop us. So we don't have any power. We are at their mercy, you know. And so I think at this point, all we can say, and you know, it's sad. Like I was watching, I got like down this rabbit hole, and I was watching all those videos of like Hamas attacking Israel, and you know, I always grew up knowing that Israel, Mossad, and like CIA were like top notch like intelligence agencies, and they could like see things coming a mile away, you know, and this just happened under their nose, and what was so like crazy about it was these people were paragliding into Israel. Like, I mean, my goodness, like you gotta give them props for like innovation. It's crazy. I mean, and then like the saddest part is because of social media, they're able to like show all these things live, and you see like kids being taken from their parents, people. You see bodies bled out on the roads, and like I don't have a side, you know. But what I know is like human beings at the basic level just want to live a peaceful life, you know. And then there's so many factors that we will never change, and these factors will keep going at each other. But at the end of the day, there's so much hatred, and people can't see eye to eye, and there's ideologies that control the world. And like I think at the end of the day, like, you know, all I could say is I think just no matter where we are, no matter who we are all human beings. At the end of the day, we are gonna die. And I think just what's important is love. It's just the love for each other, you know. It's like when all is said and done, when all the death toll hits, however high it can hit, we're gonna look back and say, wow, there was no need to do that. Like no one has won. We've both like lost, you know. And no one's gonna win. No one ever wins in war. Yes, we have a winner, but even the winner always loses, you know. Like no one ever wins. To what end? And what I always say is, we're being controlled by leaders, world leaders who are in their 50s and above. Like, do you realize that most people who control the world want to be here in 20 years? You know, it's kind of crazy. And I always think to myself, like, you know, this is just my way of thinking. Why would I want so much power and influence? First, if I don't have a child, and two, if I know I won't be here to spend all the money I make. Like okay, I understand like at some point the idea of making money just becomes useless to people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, because they will never spend it in their lifetime, right? But as a human being, what's the point of exceeding a certain amount that you could just go by? Like, I mean, for every human being, I guess there's a certain point or there's a certain amount of money that you could just like go by for the rest of your life. But we seem to be wanting more, and I realize it has nothing to do with the money. Actually, it's we're trying to like satisfy a certain need in us, and as human beings, you know, think about it. Like, I don't know, the president of the U.S., Joe Biden, he's like in his 70s, right, or 80, I think. The president of China, Xi, is like, I think, like 60 or something. The president of Russia, he's now 60 or something. Those people won't be here in 40 years or 50 years. They won't. And yet, they control the narratives of the world. And my thought is like, I would rather, if I was living for 500 years, then yes. If life was infinite, then I would be like, okay, I see a point in why I should control this. But if I'm only here for at least 100 years, I would want to spend 50 going forward with my family, like my sunset years. I would not want to be bothering the world and bothering people, because I would want to spend what I've made. I want to make whatever I make till I'm 50, then I want to spend the rest of it till I die. I want to die with like zero, probably. And I think that would be a fully satisfied life than like fighting. Like, you hear like a 90-year-old on a 90. I just saw today, there's a 93-year-old guy who was the owner of Formula One, or some kind of CEO of Formula One, the racing sport. And he just got arrested, or like he was guilty for fraud. And I'm thinking, you're 93, dude. Like, I mean, his net worth like 2.3 billion. I mean, you already have enough money. What do you need it for? Like what do you need all that money for? You're not even gonna spend it. Why would you like go for fraud? I don't get it. And so what I'm trying to say is, most of the people who control world governments and world powers, and the people who might lead to a world war, won't even be here in 10 years or 20 or 30 years. I wonder if it's just a deep thing to fight. Like, it's a desire inside that we have to fight. Because, like, what's the point? What is the point? I mean, think about it. We have a country in 2023 that people don't know anything about. We don't know anything about. And we're just okay with that. We're okay with that, And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, whether it's like Jews, Muslims, Christians, no matter, we just need to start embracing peace. That's just what matters. Like there's more people in the world who can't protect themselves. I really do think, and this is gonna sound very controversial, I think the only time I would ever be okay with war happening, not okay, but I would be like, okay, this, I could say this is if it's a fair field. If every country on earth had nuclear weapons, then it would be a fair ground where you're like, okay, now, if you hit me, I hit you, and we both know how that's going to go. But it's so unfair when only a certain number of countries have it, and they control who can have it and who can't, and then they are bickering amongst themselves and policing each other, and you're like, yo, what about us? We don't want to be in this, but we know if it starts, we live in the same planet. That's the thing. We don't have a bridge to Mars. Like, you can just choose to leave Earth. You can't. So when everything comes, falling down, it falls on all of us. And so I'm just pleading with every single person out there that if you have a chance to make peace, just do it. Put your egos aside and just make peace. Because in the long run, that's what will matter. So anyway, with all of that, I think I've said my piece on that. So let's switch back to chickens. Oh my gosh. The other day I was talking to my girlfriend about chickens. Now, she doesn't like chickens, especially the ones who are like with like little chicks, and they're so aggressive. And I was thinking, well, it got me thinking, because I was talking to her about it, and she was telling me about like how, like, if how aggressive chickens actually are. And I was thinking, well, like, what if what if chickens were the size of like horses? Can you imagine? And it got me thinking, the most aggressive animal on earth could actually be a chicken. They just don't have the ability to show it. Because I was walking by one the other day that had like tiny chicks, and I didn't even like touch them. I just walked by, and that chick freaked out, and the mom just came at me, and it was a tiny thing. It's a tiny body. Like, there was, you could use like peck, but I was kind of very scared. I was like, oh my goodness, like, wow, And so it got me thinking, like, maybe God has a reason to why he made chickens so small. Imagine if a chicken was like the size, twice a horse's size. Like, their beaks are so big, they would just like chew us off or something. And then their claws, oh my gosh. And then it got me thinking, You know what we actually don't have? We have animals on land that we could ride on, like a horse, a donkey. We could ride on their backs. A elephant in some countries. I don't know what other animals people can ride. I know horses. I know some cows, maybe. Donkeys, elephants. What else? I've never seen anyone ride a snake. That would be so interesting. What else? What else will people ride? I think that's pretty much it. There's only 3 animals that people ride. Oh, a camel. Sorry, a camel. What else? We don't really have much, but we don't. I really wish we could have an animal that flew that we could ride. I don't know why that's just something we just accepted. That there's no animal we can fly on their backs. Like I would trade a horse for flying something any day, any time, or better, a horse for something that is in the ocean that we could ride. I wonder if, like, I know this is another controversial topic and people might not like this, but you know the way in the aquariums they have like those dolphins that people can stand, that like those aquarium workers can, like, they kind of stand on their back and then they like run around the pool and they swim around the pool and do all these tricks, right? But those people kind of ride those dolphins. What if we could take them onto the ocean and like do like long distance ride? Has anyone ever thought about that? Well, I know that's animal abuse and that's just bad, but if you can think about it, that would be pretty cool. We don't have animals that we can ride in the water and on air. That would be pretty cool if we had, like, if you just be like, oh, my dad owns 2 flying giant eagles. How much is one? $2 million. Wow. It's only owned by a few, but you could ride them. That would be so cool. But anyway, I don't know why I was thinking about war and horses and chickens, sorry. But it's a crazy world. It is a crazy world, like, if you can think about things that happen, and I really, really, really do blame social media. I do. Like, I think social media will be the end of us. And I just started realizing that recently. Like, there's people who don't have Instagram. There's people who don't have Instagram. There's people who don't have Facebook. But they have something. It might be Snapchat. It might be Reddit. It might be Twitter. It might be whatever. But you have something. And if they don't, then great. But then it's just like, at what point does it end? Because I feel like now, like I was watching somebody's stream the other day, and his name is Neon, and I was thinking to myself, how does somebody, like, he's a streamer and he's like he's just every bad thing you can think of, like a terrible human being, right? And I was thinking to myself, how can somebody like this actually think that they're actually influencing the world? They believe that. And it's because, well, they're from the States. And it's because some of them have never actually experienced real problems. Like, I mean, people in the US experience problems, yes, but like they've not gone through problems to to inform them of what the world actually is. And they're so comfortable that they start like talking a lot of stuff that you're like, what are you even saying? Like, I don't know what he was talking about, but he was bullying this girl, and I kept thinking, just bring this person to Kenya for like one day, just one day. There's another one called Sneeko. I mean, the guy just like, he speaks like he knows everything, and you can tell like he has these ideas that he's made up in his head over time, and he just blasts them out, and you're thinking, how do people like this get a platform? And then you check like on the side, they have like chats and people are actually listening. And you're like, how does a person like this like even like get, and then they get money, they're very wealthy and they get to influence the world. And I saw that like he was at some kind of convention, and there's this 2 little like 12-year-old boys who came to the front and they were like, death to all women. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is where the world is going. And then now that's like 5th tier. Then who's at the top? Andrew Tate. And so like we are at the point where these are the people informing important decisions in the world. Like I know like the 50s, the 60s were really bad times for many reasons. There was inequality, there was a lot of things, but there was a little bit of modesty, and there was a little bit of morals. And I feel like that has just gone, like that's just been thrown in the back. Now it's about getting money quick. Like just click on any major podcasts now. Click on any major podcast other than Joe Rogan. He speaks about things that you can actually think about and it's thought provoking. Click on the next one, and just tell me how many you can go through before you hear somebody talk about something that's like, oh, plastic surgery, or something that how to attract a lady, how to do like, and these people are like at the very how to earn money easy, how to go to a party in LA, like I'm saying that I'm like, I don't hear like much podcasts that talk about like the struggles in the world and how to solve them. Then if they are, they're not that big. The biggest ones talk about nonsense all the time, and they shoot. Think about like the biggest creators, the biggest streamers. What do they talk about? Like, is there a streamer who actually just talks about like things a normal human being goes through? No, they're trying to make it as crazy as possible, and people are starting to believe that is the world that we should live in, and that's where the problem comes. So that's why you have these things going on unchecked, because nobody understands moral anymore. And so when they see these people paragliding into Israel, they're like, oh, that looks cool. Or when they see like the bombing thing going on, all they can say is, wow, that looks cool, because just the part of the brain that thinks about common sense things is gone. It's being eroded like slowly, and I might be part of it. I sometimes sit on Instagram and I just mindlessly scroll, and so all I can say is, God save us all, because we might not be as far away as we think from something really bad happening. We might not be. We might be very close. And the sad thing is we are very oblivious, and we've left the power because there's so many people, like 80% of the world now, just cannot think. And it's getting worse. They just can't have moral and like just common sense. It's just impossible. Everyone now is a dopamine hit. Clicks, views, likes, streams, numbers, this and that, and sponsors and ads and and it's just like, oh my goodness, So now the few who can actually think, whether even if they're not that smart, the few who can do the hard job of thinking are handed the keys to the world. And now it's just like everything is just like the show has begun, and it's just chaos, and it's organized chaos. And have you ever seen? It looks like if you've ever seen like tadpoles, like little frogs when they're born, right? If you've ever watched like a pool of tadpoles, right? And they look like they have a head and a tail, right? Like and they swim through the water. They're very interesting animals. But when I was young, I used to like sit by the pool, like by a pool of water, and just like watch them. And the behavior they emitted was very interesting. Like they would all swim in a row, so many, and if I just moved my hand, they would all move one way, like it's almost like a shoal of fish. They would all just move towards one side, and then they just move to the other side. And if there was like wind, like slowly above the water, they would all sink, and then they would all come up, like in a very interesting like pattern. Like they would all just move. So then if you strike the water, they would just all scatter to one side. Now it always fascinated me how their movements were like, they were all just triggered by the same thing, and they all thought to do one thing. And that's just how the world is now. The world is like, we're all just moving like weeds in a field, We just like swinging left and right. Like, we're like, oh, go this side, yes. Go this side, yeah. And we're being controlled by people who have interests that we don't even know about. Like, I guess somebody said, you need to follow the money to understand what's happening. I think that's true. There's a few people who are controlling the interests of the world, and we are just puppets in this game. We just like, I don't know what they call those, but we're kind of like those pieces of a show, and we all make one big circus. But we don't see it because we are in the show. So unless you take yourself out and sit in the audience and watch, we're all just pieces moving around, and we're just being played. We're just being played. And so now it's reached a point where these people who are playing us are like, okay, I don't like that guy because he's ruining my show, so I'm going to go for him. And we are collateral damage. And I just pray that when this happens, I think I can say this freely, on behalf of the people of Kenya, I would say, please just let us work. Please just let us do our own thing. We don't want any issues. We just want to put food on the table, and we just want to reach where you guys are. We just want to develop our economy. We just want to do things where we don't have to suffer. We are not ready for another war. We are not ready for it. And so whatever happens, please just let us rest. We just need that rest. And I think everyone has the same sentiment, except the people who are running the show. But yeah, I think for me, for my mom, for my family, for my people, for everybody on the continent of Africa, we just think it's time to just let us rest. We don't have you just fight over there, but please don't affect us because we're just tired. When Russia invaded Ukraine and then sanctions were put on Russia, we suffered the most. I mean, the world did suffer, but we suffered the most because of the oil and the wheat and all those things that were not like imported. Like, life here was hard, and we don't want to go through another one of that. So please, solve the issues. Talk. I don't know. Do whatever you were doing, but just leave us out of it, please. And so yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I just think it's we're just so oblivious, and I think it's just time for people to wake up and see what's happening. But yeah. At the end of the day, just love your neighbor. Even the Bible says, just love your neighbor, stop the hate, and if you have an issue, just sit down and talk like grown-ups. Don't go behind and start attacking them. It's quite easy. Well, it seems easy, but I guess it's not. Because if it was easy, then all of this wouldn't be happening. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next show.